Hey, what's up? So in this video, we will create a register endpoint. The user will send a request, email, password confirmation. We will return an access token. And we will see serializers and some on one of the generic views provided from the Django-rest framework. First thing, let's start for server, Python manager and server. Don't forget to activate your virtual env. So first thing, I'm gonna just refactor the code a little bit. First thing, I'm gonna create a file called serializers.python, and I'm gonna move my custom serializer there, this one, and of course with the imports, the proper imports. We don't need this, we don't need this. And let's come here, let's remove this. And by the way, if you type from dot, this means the current directory. So from serializers, import the custom token serializer, and I'm gonna name this login view. I'm gonna go here and change this to login, and that's it. So we need to create now another view called register. So first thing, class register view. Here, of course, this should extend something called, let me show you in the browser, these generics here, the generics views. So these are like predefined classes in the Django-rest framework. They simplify your life and give you predefined logic, which is like predefined common logic. So the first one I'm gonna show you today is create API view, used for create only endpoints, provide a post method handler. So you send HTTP post request for this view, this will be activated. This is actually useful. So from REST framework.generics, import create API view, and this actually extended. And if you look into the logic inside of this to view it before that, of course, you need to click Control and hit and click, you'll see it. But if that did not work, you probably did not activate or point your IDE to the Python interpreter you are using, to the virtual environment you are using. Remember, you can click this in Visual Studio Code and point it out, and don't forget to activate it. Like this on Windows, you will just point it out to the activate script, PNV scripts activate, and that's it. Yeah. So I just remembered something, that's why I stopped. Anyway, so let's actually go and view the serializer, the view class. It will only have this post method, and it creates this, or it calls this create method. Let's go there and check. So they will call this get serializer method. They will check is valid and call this one. They will save the data. So serializers are just like a way to validate or to serialize data from a specific format to another format. We will come to them in a moment, but they mainly are used for these two purposes: validation and formatting data. And yeah, that's basically it. They will just use the serializer to save the data and return a response with the returned data from that serializer. So that's basically it. This tells us that we need to implement our own register serializer, and that's what we are gonna do. So here, class register serializer. This word is hard for me to type. So just a serializer. This will extend from REST framework serializers, import the model serializer. Okay. So in most of the serializers you will do, you will do this, the following: class meta. You can create nested classes in Python, and this holds like meta information, you can say. I know it's a dumb explanation, but I will show you in a second. So you need now to tell Django which model this serializer should behave on, or be, yeah, model will be equal to the user model. So yeah, each ORM method will be called inside this serializer would be using this user model. So if I am creating a user with this endpoint, the data sent to this view using this serializer will be used with the user model to create an instance and save it in the database. Okay, so the second thing we need to tell it which fields from the request body it should be using to put it in the database, to use it to create a user and put it in the database, right? So first one would be username, second one would be email, and then maybe first name, last name, and then email. I think this makes sense, right? So send these and I will use them to put them in the database, and that's pretty much it. Now let's import this. Sorry, in our views. I'm gonna do this and import our register view. So permission, sorry, serializer class will be point to this. And by the way, behind the scenes, Django, our Django-rest framework will actually create an instance from this. We are just passing the class, okay? It will create an instance and call the methods on top of it. So this is it. This will now actually work. So let's go to this route. Of course, we need to register it first. So import here register view. So path register as view register. It works. First thing we have these four. These four inputs comes from the serializer fields, as you can see. Username, email, first name, last name. I think there should be 5. 1, 2. Username is the email, is the first name, last name. Oh yeah, we have email twice. Sorry. So yeah, this is it. And the order is the same order here. So if I have this one here and this one here, if you want to change the order for some reason, you can. Okay. You need, of course, the password as well. Okay, let's actually test this, if this actually works. At gmail.com does not matter anything. Post, it actually works. But the annoying thing, it returns the password. We can fix that, but it works. Let's actually go and see our user. So let me close all of this. I believe it's this one here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is our actual user that we just created. Yes, but if you notice, the password is the same thing we actually added. It's not the encrypted one, so we need to fix that. So there is some issues that we need to fix, right? So yeah. First thing, we need to actually send the password confirmation as well. So this is the first thing I'm gonna add here. I'm gonna fix the stuff, or I'm gonna fix everything step by step. It's gonna be a little bit long. But yeah, now we need, if you open the form, it will complain, hey, the password confirmation is not valid for model user. It makes sense, right? Because this is not a column in the table. So what we need to do is to put it here and mark it, hey, this is not required. So don't throw any errors about it. And to do this, we need to import from Django-rest framework serializers, import char field, and yeah, I just did this above here. I can't do this now. And you can give it, hey, this is not required. I'm gonna just copy that. Equal false. And now this should work. But we will see another error in a moment. So let's just put any random data. First error, we will see this username already exists. This is because randomly it happens that I enter a username that I have. And the second one is the email. And this actually comes from the database itself. So this actually, or no, sorry, this one actually comes, if you go to the user, it comes from this. So there's some built-in validations. from these, as you can see. I hope you can. Yeah, maybe I was too fast, but it's not matter. Anything.com. Now this should throw an error because everything in the fields, it tries to get it from the body of the request and insert it into the user's model, which obviously the password confirmation does not exist in the as a column there, so it will throw an error. To fix this, we should override the create. So behind the scenes, this serializer will call the create with the data. And by default, it's called validated data because you should or you can implement this def validate, and the returned value from these are actually passed here. So validate is actually called before create, which makes sense. And this is the body of the request, so data, and you should validate it, then return them, for example, and this will be used here. For now, I'll leave this without anything, which will just give us the body of the request as the validated data. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the user model.objects.create. Username will be equal to the validated data.get username. I'm gonna do this multiple times. The second one will be first name, email, last name. And that should be it. Now we will fix another issue that we saw. Remember, the password were actually being saved as it is. We need to encrypt it, and in Django, the good thing, this exists, or this functionality exists in the user model. It's called set password, but we don't have auto completion. We can type hint in Django in Python, so I can do this as a user. Now we have set password. Just give it the validated data.get the password. Not sure if using it is the best solution here. Maybe you want to do this, so it throws actual error if the data does not exist. But by default, all of these are required. So if they are not in the request, and I can show you, they will throw an error. I will show you in a moment. But yeah, after we set the password, encrypted, user.save, now just return the user. And this should be it. Now do it again. First thing, let's set an empty, as you can see, an empty request. Username, email, password may not be blank. This comes actually from the database. Maybe, yeah, sorry, my bad. This comes from the database. So if we do this and hit post, yeah, it may not be blank. And this actually, this validation actually comes from the abstract user class. You would see that a username. So if you don't have blank equal true, it will be false by default. So this a character field, which is just like a string, that does not accept any blank strings, but these two accept. So yeah, you can do the, so to validate, hey, to tell the serializer, hey, I only want, or I want all of these to be required. I think you should do like this. So copy this, username, true. This should be required. Email, true. First name, true. Last name, true. Last one. So now if I try to do this, we should get the same error for each one of them, which is nice. So yeah, I will keep these. Now we can just access them in a safe way like this. It's fine. And yeah, the only one is not required, the password confirmation. We can just check if the password confirmation does not equal the password, we'll throw an error. Yeah, we will throw an error. So let's first check if our hashing works. Let's do this. It's not matter. So this. Yeah, like this. So this actually works. This, and yeah, the password is actually hashed, as you can see, because we actually retain it. You should never do this, but this now works. We need to activate the password confirmation and then change the return value. So to validate that, you will override the validate function. Oops. This actually should be called data in my opinion, but yeah. So I'm gonna check if data, then access the password. I wanted to throw an error if the password does not exist and does not equal data, and then access the password confirmation. Of course, this is a dictionary. I'm gonna raise a validation error. Error message will be equal passwords do not match, or else I'll just return the data. This validation error actually comes from the exception in the REST framework. So now let's actually modify this. Put something does not equal and change this to be unique. Post password does not match. Should be passwords does not match. I think that's good enough. It's not like the best thing ever, but it's good enough. Now post. This should work. Now the only thing left to do is like to log in the user or return access token. You can't log in the user. You'll just return an access token, the JWT, and that's it. To do this, I won't do it from here. I will do it from the views. Remember, in this generic view, this will call it create. At the end, it will return response. So I'm gonna override this create, and that's it. And after that, we are done. Def create, and yeah. So first thing I'm gonna get, it's just similar to what we saw here. I'm just gonna get the serializer like this, raise exceptions, and continue. I can extend it by giving it like type hinting. As you can see now, I can type serializers.is valid, and it should give me autocomplete. Raise, it's not for some reason, but yeah, raise exceptions to true. This function, you should always call this function, or Django will throw an error, because this function will check if the past data is validated or not, and yeah, I should always do it. Now the user will be equal to the serializer dot create. This is calling this method, so it will return a user instance, right? So I'm gonna type in that with user, and validated data will be equal to the serializer dot validated data as well, like this. At the end, or now I need to use this method that we actually added here to create a custom JWT. So I can just do refresh, or token will be equal to the custom token serializer dot get token, and just pass to it the user. Now return response, and this actually comes from the REST framework dot response import response. Refresh should be converted into a string. This will be equal to the token itself, and the access be equal to string. Refresh, or sorry, token can type dot access token. So this is the actual JWT, this is the refresh token. And now I need to give it like an HTTP status. So HTTP or status will be equal, we need to return 201, right? Which means created. I'm gonna import, yeah, it already did that for me. So from REST framework, import status dot HTTP 201, which means created. This should be it. Let's go and test it again. this, boom. Yeah, it actually customized it, so we have a user ID, name, email, whatever. So yeah, I think that's it for the register. Or yeah, for the register. Maybe in the next video we could actually focus a little bit on the front end, creating a login and register forms, and we'll continue after that.